Welcome to another edition of Tech Fireside Chats with your host, Joel Martin. Take it away, Joel.
Hey, Albert, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on, Joel?
Oh, buddy, it's good to see you. So I haven't done this in a long time because the pandemic was over, but you're by far one of the most interesting guys I've met. It's been a few months since we got to hang out in San Diego, but man, I've been thinking about the conversation, and it's great to meet another advisor, somebody who's in tech space that can jump from the metaverse and virtual reality to experiential. And you blew my mind at the MediaPost show. You took the stage. You guys talked about Lexus December to Remember for your agency, Walton Isaacson, and I was just so blown away by your whole presentation that you saw me. I was like clapping, and then all of a sudden you bring up on the screen Swift Mile, which is my network, and I was like, oh my God, I sold these guys ads and I didn't even know it. So that's just a little backstory for everybody watching how we met back at the MediaPost Digital of Home Summit. But yeah, man, I would love to hear it. So maybe you can give some of my audience maybe your background. Like, how'd you get into experiential? How'd you become an advisor? I would love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been in digital. This would be my 24th year. So I think the good thing for me is everything that matters I saw get built. I remember doing search engine marketing in 99, 2000, and here comes Google, and people are like, what's Google? And this was when Alta Vista still reigned supreme, probably had the best name and the best translated name, View from the Top. I guess they didn't know there wasn't going to be much of View from the Top for very long, and there wasn't. But I mean, look, I've been doing influencer marketing since it was the blogosphere, so that's a 20-year milestone for me. I watched, as you saw from the conference, the digital out-of-home business go from an out-of-home real estate business to a programmatic marketplace with some real value as it pertained to attention. I always consider myself more a marketer's marketer. I don't get overly zealous about any new screens, technology. At the end of the day, we're all in the business because the consumer is buying stuff. And because of that, we have jobs. If they stop buying, we're all out of work. So that's who I've always chased. My background is in consumer marketing, even through grad school. But I guess I've known since the beginning, only the consumer is guaranteed to win. Everybody else can lose. And in this business with technology, there are a lot of losers. And there are people who, despite themselves, they almost act like they want to lose because they're so focused on the B2B business. And they forget the C part, the B2B2C, as I always like to refer to. So look, man, I've always enjoyed the work and space I've been in. I think what I focused on is like, people need to get to the truth as why people do what they do, why they buy what they buy, what gets them to move them to decisioning. I think there's just been a lot of white noise in the space, and people just focus on the wrong stuff. And luckily, people make good products, so consumers will buy it. We're always shopping. So every consumer now at this point, post-COVID, is willing to buy the drop of a text message thread for a flash sale. It's no longer just for the super rich. It's for anyone who's got a Zelle, PayPal account. So we just live in a different era. And I think the biggest thing I've always focused on is the speed of the consumer and trying to keep pace. So I mean, look, that's sort of how I've been sort of operating the sandbox since the beginning.
Yeah, and you're like an expert in segmentation and hitting the right demographics, which are hard to reach. I really enjoyed hearing that on the stage. I mean, some people think, oh, any screen will do, any zip code or any market, and that's really not the case, right?
No, not at all. I mean, look, we as people all have inherent human behaviors, and I think people just disregard the human factors in behavior. And look, there are decisions that happen outside of the funnel, or as they say, above the funnel. And happen not even because of a funnel. And sometimes marketing, there's a causality relationship, cause them to get into the funnel because they now see an opportunity to purchase or where they can procure something. But people, can't delude themselves and thinking advertising is just the sole reason. There are inherent biases, there are preferences, there are things that speak to us, that connect with us emotionally. There are things that just suit our ethos. There are things that come as life happens that we now need and now need to acquire. All those factors really play into why people do what they do. I probably spend more time on the clinical psychology side of understanding people than the ad tech side about what the technology can do. The question is, can the technology map to the path to purchase, the decision-making model, all those things that really sort of matter. And then when it can, then you can democratize to figure out what screens, what pipes and media actually matter. They're going to move a consumer. I think people just think they can all do something, and nothing could be further from the truth. That's why we see generational preferences just between social platforms, because each of the core social platforms do something different to us, whether we're a Boomer, Gen Xer, Millennial, or Gen Z. In all these variables, in every facet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yep. I see some of my older relatives. That's not for LinkedIn.
Yeah, right.
Please don't put pictures of the barbecue. Nobody wants to see the grandkids there. Like,
yeah.
But it is what it is, right?
Those basic rules of engagement. Like, people don't understand. They're business rules for everything, even if they're soft user rules. Like, how, Gen Z uses social media for discovery. It's their lens. That's their search engine. That's why they love TikTok so much. They're like, oh, TikTok made me do it. Where'd you learn that recipe? My kids were up there making some custom cookies, and they learned it on TikTok. They're not going to Google search. So what you start to see is old generations use social media for community, to connect, but voyeuristically. Younger generations use it for discovery, really to shop. That's why they're happy that you can connect to PayPal and Cash App and Zelle and all these other things, because they want to do it all through that funnel. Whereas we want to do our research and then check it over here and then check it over here and then buy it over there. And that's very old school. And so when you start to understand as an advertiser, if you're using the platforms and the pipes, each of the generations is going to identify and align and make a decision very different. They're going to get to the point of purchase in a very different manner because of how they are wired. And I looked at the same thing when I was looking at the digital out-of-home space. What value somebody younger finds in out-of-home signage and the type of signage to somebody older is very different. Even the space, so if you look at grocery store, opportunities for signage to a shopper versus gas station TV as signage versus some of the main big billboards, you can only imagine the difference in what those screens can do to move someone to point of sale. And look, it's different when the screen is at the point of sale, or in the point of sale, versus it's miles from the point of sale. And you have to hold those thoughts and then formulate a decision for some later point in time. All those things matter when you start thinking about how you make choices and selections in any media space.
I'm actually showing now a screenshot from the show, from the MediaPost show, where you talked mapping the consumer footprint, and you had Clear Channel Outdoor, Swift Mile, which was my network, Lamar and Loop TV on the screen, and I was like blown away that you had so much engagement, with the activities with the mapping of Lexus to Remember, right? To me, hey, we sold another campaign, it was great, but to know that we were part of this, Loop TV inside of retail, Lamar billboards, Clear Channel with their digital retail, we were part of this omni-channel strategy for the dealerships. I thought that was just fantastic.
Yeah, it's good. When I look at that case example in omni-channel, because when people talk about omni-channel, they're thinking about all the channels. You can do omni-channel within one verticalized conversation. You can do it within gaming, within social. Obviously, we did it here within the digital out-of-home space. The idea that we looked at is understanding the client's business model. And if you take automotive, it's dealership driven. 90% of the money they make is at a physical location. Most 80% of the money, as you heard from Mark, is through parts and service, which has to be done on site, meaning they're not coming to your house to do the servicing. So you understand that making it to that location and repeat patterns matter. So you start to look at, okay, what type of signage could best indicate the opportunity for direct retail connection relationship is that way. You also have to look at the fact that, look, everyone's not going to be in a car. Some people, now we're in this multimodal transportation. So some people will be on a scooter. Some people will be on an e-bike. Some people will be in an Uber, a taxi. Some people may be riding with a friend. They may be driving their own, or they may drive to a perimeter and then commute in by train, by bus. So when you start thinking about that entire pathway in the cityscape, is what I always call it, or the hardscape, you have to think about what are all those touch points, and what are the touch points that don't compete. I think I like about Swift Mile is if somebody shows up at an e-bike station, the only signage you're competing with is what Swift Mile has, and you're getting the bike. There's certain signage and billboards, you walk through a downtown, you're competing with all the signage, and some of it isn't even that digital out-of-home or out-of-home signage. It's just signs, period. It could be just names on restaurants and buildings. So you look about that and said, oh, okay, here's an opportunity where we'll get dedicated attention, uninterrupted attention. The game is always about attention. That's what we're chasing and pursuing here. And look, all the partners you saw in the plan had a different mode of attention to help shape mindshare. So Loop TV, theirs was on the gas station TV. So when you're pumping gas, the only thing you can do other than sit in your car is watch the pump and hear it and roll up. However, you can watch TV. It's dedicated attention, even if it's only 60 seconds or however long it takes to pump the gas. And again, it's along the journey, aligned with the product you're pushing, automotive, and it has direct correlation to the infrastructure. Internal combustion engines require gas stations, so we're gonna advertise across a landscape that ties into the product being sold and what you're already using as utility. Same thing when you think about Swift Mile. People got to need modes of transportation, so the signage is tapped into part of the infrastructure of mobility, and we'll have that signage there. But those have to be strategically thought about. They're not just random. You have to think about the consumer and the mode they're in, and is this an opportunity to speak to them, and can you move them with some level of mind share or into the actual point of sale as a business opportunity?
Yeah, I'm still blown away all these months later when I watch this case study. I keep thinking, wow, right? Like you really hit it out of the park, at least for us, like to see us be part of that whole ecosystem. And also the amount of impressions that you got from the network were just incredible. So where do you go next? I mean, what type of campaigns are you working on now? Like what type of experiential projects have you been working in the last, I mean, we haven't seen each other in a couple months. So, what's at the top of your project list?
Well, look, we're still continuing the digital out-of-home push. And look, the thing we did is you saw from the case study, we used one of our mobile display partners, a partner Demand Local of about, I think we're in year 7. So they had all the data related to location tracking. So this was an extension of mobile and moving into mobility, as I like to say it, just because at the end of the day, they had a lot of the data. And look, at the end of the day, in the digital out-of-home space, the one thing you have is your mobile device. So it just made sense to tether the two together, what you have device-wise to what the out-of-home screen experience is. And again, that's intentional as well. We didn't just buy digital out-of-home in an independent silo. We tethered it to our mobile efforts because the main thing you have is a mobile device. So we're going to continue to do that. There'll probably be some other partners whose screens we run against as well, just based upon goals and business objectives we're trying to accomplish, and their footprints map to that. Again, we look at how the consumer moves. Like we know from a lot of Demand Local data that an average Lexus store visitor is about 12 to 18 miles from the dealership. So no one's really under 3 miles because those are in highly retail areas, and nobody's coming 30 miles out. So we actually picked a footprint of digital out-of-home exposure points within that 12 to 18 mile radius, because by and large, that's where the consumer is driving from, largely from their home. So the pathway is in between. And we looked at some things a little more closer to the retail epicenter. But again, that's intentionally done when you're talking about mapping the consumer movement. Look, and here's the thing. This is what Target and CVS and Chick-fil-A do when they set up a store. They map the entire 5-7 mile radius. They look at how much the inflow of traffic is. They looked at the other retail patterns of their anchor store, their supporting store. They look at the growth of residential. They look at all the particulars based on the household makeup and said, hey, is this our consumer? Yes. We applied the same degree of diligence to just digital out-of-home campaign because the intelligence related to a PMA area, the zip code area, is already there. It's already been there. What I'm always amazed at why people just don't think like retailers do, because we have to move people to a point of sale, dealerships or retail operations. So we think the same way they did in the targeting, the way they did when they built the land and decided to undergo construction.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about real estate, right?
Yeah, very common sense oriented, but I can't say everybody does it, but I don't, for us, that's just how you build it in a smart way. And look, it's easier to sell it through when you tell them you're going to use a similar methodology that they use to set up a store to set up audiences.
Well, and that's like the personas and the audiences and the pursuit of who really is your target. I think some of the things that you threw on stage made a lot of sense to me. Hispanics buy a lot of Lexuses, right? That was like, wow, that's true. Like I see it. And now I understand they have a great outreach to the community. that they hired a lot of GMs to have, the regional head of Lexus say that, like, yeah, we have a lot of Hispanics who work in the dealerships, right? And they're the GMs of the stores, and we're reaching out to the community, and we know these people, and they come back and they buy their second car. I thought that was great. I mean, there's just so many touch points, and let's advertise in the places where people are going. I think you just hit on something else that I wanted to share, which is funny. You're talking about mobile. I'm actually helping another company get their the power of mobile off the ground, which is the first digital out-of-home network for phone charging
Okay.
throughout the states. And the name of the company is ChargeFuse, chargefuse.com. And they're doing programmatic digital out-of-home as well, which I think is super interesting, because maybe you have to, watch a video on your phone in order to get the free charging, or it's free charging in an event. Here you see Chase. Verizon's been sponsoring a lot of these stations at different events throughout the country. And I think that's an interesting way of doing it. So I would love to get your feedback on something like this as the next level of, mobile advertising with the battery.
It's funny when I look at things like ChargeFuse and some of the other companies that will pop up in the digital out-of-home ecosystem. Because let's be clear, I mean, half those companies in the digital out-of-home space are CTV companies. It's just a screen that's in your home. It's in an elevator. It's in a lobby. It's in a hotel. It's in a shopping mall. When I look at this, it's a similar thing in terms of, this was one model. Charging phones isn't new. I think we all struggle to keep our batteries powered because it's like a countdown clock, particularly when we're in the airport. But you'd have to look at, okay, what does that look like out of space? Let's call it festival goers, which is kind of the model you talked about. What you have to you look at as an opportunity that says, okay, to what degree does a festival goer fit your core target audience of what you're selling, and if that's a match? And it's an opportunity to move mind share, in particular if there's some contextual relevance to charging the phone and what you're selling. So if I were Lenovo, a computing company, this would make absolute sense, because this is all in the guise of computing power, because phones are basically tiny computers. Makes complete sense. If there's something else that makes sense as well, business-wise, I think it's very smart. Look, you might get to a place where a packaged goods company, this doesn't make as much sense. Again, if you can make a contextual match toward the opportunity, the environment that's in, the mechanism of charging and what its relevance is to your business category, and it's that consumer type that is the individual that makes sense for you, then the opportunities are like limitless. So, I mean, look, I applaud them for not just saying, hey, we're going to just sell chargers and throw them in a racetrack gas station. So if you charge at home, you can pick it up while you're on the road. Look, companies do that. That is a model. But to sit there and integrate it within a footprint that houses tens of thousands of people, and obviously the concert series came back with the COVID revenge and a boom after.
Yeah. The company's really busy with that. I mean, Live Nation is one of the partners, EG, and they're doing like EDC and all the bigger events, right? And part of that, I think, is this drive, like Uber advertising, Lyft media. You see a lot of the apps that have a lot of user data. I mean, think about the data that Uber advertising has with Uber Eats, right? Yeah. And now they're all shifting to mobile advertising, again, on the power of your phone. So this is kind of, to me, this ChargeFuse is more of a combination of the app and the battery, plus the access to who are we targeting, right? I mean, you're gonna need power as you leave that, the LA Live in downtown LA.
Yep.
But I just love how it's all coming together. And I think we talked about supermarkets at the show, right? We were talking about Terra Boost, and that they're in a lot of Hispanic markets, and with 125,000 kiosks out there. It's interesting to see a lot of these smaller networks. What do you think is the play for the smaller, new, up and coming networks as they turn digital and they turn to programmatic digital at home? Is there, I mean, what is the next step for them, in your opinion?
Look, if I had to take a peek into the looking glass of the future digital out of home, the thing is that the only limitation is running out of real estate, which you almost can't do. You have to understand that a lot of the other media pipes have constraints, not only by point of access. You only have so many TVs in a house, so there's only so many screens you can advertise on. There's only so many phones you're going to have in the house for mobile targeting. There's only so many consoles you're going to have in the house for gaming. But out of home, you have to look at the amount of undeveloped land space in the US or globally, and then how much could be built up on. So if you're a company that's in the hard screen business that needs real estate, well, as long as real estate keeps developing, which apparently it is in every major state in the country, then you really don't have a limitation on how many screens you can have. As long as there's a urban sprawl, you keep moving. As long as there are more festival goers, you keep moving. And I think that's the one thing that's very interesting. At some point, the population growth slows down, so there will only be so many more people on a given social network. So there are physical constraints that are limitations. That's why companies plateau. But in the digital out of home space, you keep reimagining and say, well, look at all the white space in people's day-to-day lives and how they live in the live stream. Remember, we live our lives outside our homes. That's how we define ourselves.
Oh, wait. Hold on. You just touched on something because you're in the experience. You talk about Web3. You talk about Web3 and the metaverse too. So I'm going to throw another curveball at you. What do you think about the future of programmatic and digital advertising in video games and in the metaverse? I would love to see what your thought is on that, because I do advise a company in the Orlando game space that is in that field. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, when I think about Web3 and programmatic, it's not that we haven't dipped our toes in water. First of all, let's call it Web 2.5. Okay, in-game advertising's been here since AdMob. So I don't know how old that is, when it was just an in-game ad network. But look, you got companies like AdMazing, FramePlay, PlayWire that allow you to do that now between mobile games, major titles. So there is a precedence for it. I think what you're going to look at is who wants to string together all the deal IDs on the blockchain. The marketplace is very decentralized, not highly organized, so you'd have to chase those down individually to do that. And look, you'd have to look at that beyond Decentraland, Horizon Worlds, Roblox, etc. You know, the big communities, Fortnite, that exist now, and have to look at what other spaces, who's going to program that out. But I think that's just coming. That's just a matter of time in terms of people starting to build that out. Because again, you have to look at where attention is going. Wherever attention is going, monetization will go. So attention is going to Web3, just below the line. Nobody's PRing it because Meta messed up the whole idea of PRing Web3 in the metaverse. So no one's doing that anymore. That's dead. However, people are still building. So when you look at players, you'd have to follow what the builders are. You want to know if Web3 is being built, find the people who are the building blocks. It's not in the Web2 companies. Go where they're going. You can start to see with real estate. That's like saying, hey, you don't believe there's construction going on? Look at the construction companies and the tractors you see it being trucked on highways and roadways. See where they stop. There's a big shopping mall that's coming up there, our new residential area. You need to kind of do it the same way. But I would say that someone is, they're already starting to connect the major pipes as opportunity. The thing is, there's a lot of direct deals that are going on because you really have to understand the environment. So look, the internet basically shaped that way in Web 1. We called them portals. And we had portal deals, and they were these mega deals on MSN and Yahoo and AOL. Now those are just SSPs for the programmatic universe at this point. But the same thing will happen. So Decentraland is another portal deal. It's a Web3 social network, okay? But once we move beyond the direct deals and the long tail starts to shape up, then we'll start to see the programmatic connection in a Web3 era where people can advertise in the experiences. Right now, it's really one-off. So scale is hard to really calculate, but we're in the early days where no one wants to necessarily take that risk. They would rather do it with direct deals to understand who they're in the sandbox with. And that helps mitigate risk or make it more calculated risk.
Yep, I agree. It's really interesting to see it from the indie game side too, because there's all these silos. I mean, it's not like an individual game developer can get into Roblox or Fortnite. It's like their own worlds, right? The metaverse is not the Matrix. It's not an open world yet, but it's cool to see it develop. It's really cool to see it develop. What's next for you? What's the next show that we're going to hang out at? Where are you going to?
You going to Cannes?
No, I wish. I'm not at that level. I know you are, but that's cool, man. I'm glad you're going. Are you going to DPA? Or are you going to the next MediaPost?
Likely going to be in the return for the digital out of home one in Austin.
Fantastic. I'll see you there for sure. Okay.
And I'll probably be on deck for advertising week in New York again.
Okay. All right. I'll be there.
Yeah.
All right. So we get two chances to hang out and grab that beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. All right. Well, I think we went like 5 minutes over the 20 mark. That's okay. This is a great conversation. Is there anything I should tell my audience, like, that they should visit your website, they should reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Look, absolutely. Look, I'm always willing to talk. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I mean, look, I hold intellectual curiosity above all else. I think people just have to remain curious about what's going on. I did a Web3 talk, I think, at DigiDay in New Orleans, and it was amazing how many people were talking about, I didn't understand that Web3 was what you said it was. I thought it was X. And it just blows my mind, because I'm like, look, people got to do the diligence and find out for themselves. You can't learn politics by watching CNN. You actually have to learn politics. You won't learn about Web3 by just watching the headlines on the trades. You actually have to get in the space and understand how it's being built. So those would be my last words if you're trying to keep pace with the pace of the sectors.
Well, listen, I think you're an amazing speaker. And ever since then, we've been chatting and talking. And I can't wait to the next media post just to see you. Hopefully you take the stage again. So good luck in France. I definitely can't go. I got Infocom and the ANA event. But that's on my bucket list. It's on my bucket list for sure.
All right, man. Sounds good.
All right, dude. Okay. Have fun in Maryland.
All right.
Thanks for watching, and join us next week on Tech Fireside Chats.